What if revenge could hide in a tiny drop of liquid? What if freedom came not with the sword, but in silence? In the deep fields of Alabama, the sun burned bright, but shadows ran deeper. The cotton swayed, soft and white, but under the beauty lay pain. Men and women worked from dawn to dusk. Their backs were sore, their hands cracked, and above them the overseer watched. Cruel and cold, he ruled the plantation like a dark king. Among the enslaved there was a man named Elijah. Quiet, careful, and clever, he moved like a shadow. He listened, he watched, he learned. Every harsh word, every lash, every cruel order sank into him like poison. But he carried his own plan, a secret plan, a plan that would shake the house of chains. Elijah knew that sometimes true power hides in silence. Sometimes the smallest action can change everything. The plantation stretched wide, a world of white cotton and green fields. From far away, it looked calm, even beautiful. The sunlight made the leaves shine, the cotton glow like snow. But beauty was only a mask. Underneath, the ground was heavy with suffering, sweat, and fear. The house at the center was large, tall, and white. Its windows gleamed like cold eyes. Inside, the overseer moved with power, giving orders that cut deeper than any whip. Every room held whispers of pain. Every hallway smelled of fear. The workers lived like shadows, unseen and unheard. They carried the weight of chains that no one could see, but everyone felt. Elijah walked the rows of cotton, watching the overseer. The man was cruel, loud, and proud. He punished quickly and without mercy. A dropped tool, a slow step, a whispered complaint, any small mistake could bring suffering. The field was not just land, it was a trap, a place where hope struggled to breathe. At night, the air grew heavier. The moon rose pale and cold, casting long, thin shadows across the fields. The wind moved through the cotton like ghost fingers, whispering secrets no one dared speak aloud. In that darkness, Elijah's mind grew sharp. He thought about the pain, the lashes, the anger burning inside him. The plantation was a cage made of sunlight and shadow. It held wealth and power for some, and chains and misery for others. Every creak of a floorboard, every hiss of the wind seemed to speak of hidden truths. Elijah knew the overseer's pride was his weakness. He saw it in the way the man laughed too loud, looked too closely, thought he was untouchable. But the fields also held quiet allies. Other slaves moved like whispers through the night, sharing glances, passing wordless warnings. They had stories too, stories of lost family, broken bodies, and stolen freedom. Elijah listened. He remembered. He planned. The house of cotton and chains was strong, but even the strongest walls have cracks. And in the silence, Elijah saw the path ahead. A path hidden in shadows, waiting for the right moment. A path that could change everything. Elijah moved through the fields like a shadow, quiet, but always watching. He spoke little, but his eyes missed nothing. Every lash, every shout, every unfair order was carved into his memory. The overseer saw only a silent worker, unaware that Elijah's mind held a storm. Born in chains, Elijah had known hardship from the start. He remembered mothers crying softly at night, brothers and sisters stolen or whipped, and fathers whose strength could not stop the pain. Yet he survived. He learned to bend without breaking, to listen without speaking, to wait for the moment when silence could be stronger than any shout. He had a small corner of the world he could call his own, a hidden place behind the barn, where the wind moved freely and no overseer dared to look. Here, Elijah thought and planned. He studied the overseer's habits, when he drank, when he laughed too loud, when he left his room unlocked. Every detail was a thread in a tapestry of revenge. Despite his quiet nature, Elijah inspired others. The slaves around him noticed his sharp mind and calm courage. They began to move carefully, to share small glances and secret messages. It was subtle, like smoke drifting in the night. No one spoke of plans openly, but everyone understood that change might be coming. Elijah's heart carried anger, yes, but also patience. He knew that striking too soon would mean death. Waiting meant power, and power, he believed, could be hidden in the smallest act. Sometimes just one drop could carry more weight than 1,000 fists. Night after night, Elijah walked under the moon, shadows stretching long across the cotton fields. He imagined the overseer falling into the trap he had so quietly built. The thought was not cruel, it was necessary. Justice, in his mind, was a whisper that would shake the loudest voices. By day, he remained the silent shadow, bending to orders, appearing the weak, invisible. But in his chest, a fire burned. Each glance at the overseer, each beat of the wind, each sigh of a tired worker added fuel to that fire. He was not just a man in chains. He was a storm gathering strength, ready to break free in a single, precise moment. And so Elijah waited, patient, quiet, unseen, a shadow in a house built on cotton and pain, carrying a secret that could change everything. The days grew hotter, the cotton fields endless, and the overseer's cruelty sharper than ever. Elijah watched him closely, noting every gesture, every habit. The man moved like he owned the world, but Elijah saw cracks in his armor. Pride, arrogance, and carelessness, they were all weaknesses that could be used. Each morning, the overseer drank his bitter medicine. It was a small ritual, almost unnoticed, but Elijah saw it. The bottle sat on a shelf, its glass catching the sun, its contents heavy and dark. A single drop could change everything if it fell at the right moment. The idea formed slowly, like a shadow growing across the ground. Elijah's plan needed patience. He could not rush. One wrong move would mean death, not just for him, but for anyone who even looked at him with suspicion. So he learned the rhythms of the house, when doors creaked, when footsteps echoed, when the overseer's mind wandered. Every detail was a piece of the hourglass. Every second passed slowly, dripping toward the moment of reckoning. At night, Elijah moved quietly, almost invisible. He listened to whispers, to secrets, to the soft breathing of those who dreamed under the heavy weight of chains. Some feared the night, but he found comfort in it. Darkness was his ally, patience his weapon. The plan was like a seed buried in soil, growing slowly until it could burst forth. Elijah thought of the overseer's cruelty, the lashes, the shouts, the hunger, the fear. It all burned inside him, but he also felt sorrow. The man's death would not bring back stolen families or healed scars. Still, justice demanded action, and sometimes justice came in the smallest, quietest ways. He imagined the moment, the overseer lifting the bottle to his lips, the sun catching the glass, the drop falling unseen, a heartbeat, a life changed. No screams, no fight, just the quiet, perfect justice of one drop. It was almost poetic, like a candle flickering and then going out in silence. Days passed, and Elijah practiced patience. Every movement, every glance, every whispered word from a fellow slave was part of the plan. They learned to trust his quiet ways, to follow his shadow, to move as one. Suspicion was a trap, but Elijah was clever. The overseer suspected nothing. The plantation itself seemed to sense what was coming. The wind moaned through the cotton, the trees groaned in the heat, and even the sun seemed to pause over the fields. It was as if the earth itself knew that time was running out, that the hourglass of fate was almost spent. And then one evening, when the house was quiet, the candles dimmed, and the world held its breath, Elijah took the bottle in his hands. His heart did not race. His hands did not shake. He was calm, focused, a shadow of himself, and yet something more, something unstoppable. The poisoned hourglass had been turned, and the seconds began to slip away. The night was heavy, still and deep. Only the wind whispered through the cotton, carrying secrets no one dared speak. Elijah moved like a shadow, silent, careful, his eyes fixed on the small bottle in his hand. Every step was measured, every breath held, as if the world itself waited for what was about to happen. The overseer sat alone in his room, tired from the heat of the fields, unaware that his fate was slipping closer with each passing second. He poured the medicine into a glass, his fingers careless, his mind on his own pride. The candlelight danced across the walls, casting long, trembling shadows. Elijah's hand hovered over the bottle. One drop. That was all it would take. One tiny, quiet act, and the cruelty, the pain, the long years of chains would have their answer. His heart beat steady. He did not tremble. And that moment, patience and planning became action. The drop fell, silently, softly, into the bitter liquid. Nothing seemed to change. The overseer lifted the glass to his lips, taking the drink without suspicion. Elijah watched, unseen, hidden in the shadows, the night holding its breath along with him. Time slowed. The overseer swallowed. A twitch, a cough. Then the bite of poison worked its cruel magic. The man staggered, his pride faltering, his strength failing. Elijah did not gloat. There was no joy here, only justice, carved in silence. The fields outside seemed to lean closer, listening, feeling the shift in the world. Elijah melted into the darkness, the quiet hero of a night no one else would remember. The overseer fell, but the story did not end neatly. The plantation, the wind, the cotton, it all held a secret now, a tension that would linger long after the night passed. Even as the overseer's life faded, Elijah felt no relief, only the weight of what had been done. One drop had changed everything, yet the world remained cruel, heavy, and unforgiving. Justice, he realized, was not a gift, it was a shadow, and shadows never speak. The overseer's room was still, heavy with heat and the scent of candle wax. His chest rose and fell unevenly, each breath a struggle. The poison worked silently, creeping through his veins like a cold shadow. His eyes, once sharp and proud, now flickered with confusion and fear. Outside, the wind whispered through the cotton fields, carrying a sense of change. The workers sensed it too, though no one spoke. Something had shifted in the night, a silence heavier than the whip, a shadow darker than the overseer's anger. The overseer tried to speak, but his voice failed him. His fingers twitched over the table, searching for strength that was gone. Elijah watched from the shadows, unseen, heart steady. He did not rush. He did not celebrate. He knew that justice had been done, but the world outside his small victory remained cruel. The candlelight flickered, casting long, trembling shapes on the walls. The overseer fell back, his pride shattered, his power ended. Yet even in death, he left behind fear, suspicion, and whispers. The house, the fields, and the cotton seemed to shiver as if remembering every lash, every harsh word, every stolen moment of freedom. Elijah slipped away into the night, silent as a shadow, leaving behind the body and the story it carried. The plantation would not speak his name, but the legend had begun. A single drop had changed a life, but the world would continue to spin on its cruel axis. And in the stillness, one truth remained. Justice could hide in the smallest act, yet even victory carried a weight too heavy to lift. The overseer's last breath was a whisper, a warning, and a secret the fields would carry for years to come. The plantation never felt the same after that night. The overseer was gone, but fear lingered like a thick fog over the cotton fields. Workers moved quietly, glances sharp, whispers soft, as if the shadows themselves carried the memory of what had happened. No one dared speak openly of Elijah, but everyone knew that something unseen had changed the balance of power. Elijah disappeared into the night, leaving no trace. Some say he fled to the forest, blending with the darkness, while others whispered that he simply became a ghost among the living, always watching, always waiting. His legend grew, carried in murmurs from one worker to another, from one plantation to the next, each telling added mystery, shaping him into more than a man, a symbol of silent resistance and cunning revenge. The plantation's walls seemed to hold the memory of that single drop, as if the house itself remembered the night the overseer's power ended. Even the wind through the cotton carried a different weight, softer but full of warning. New overseers came, but they moved carefully, sensing that the plantation had its own stories, its own eyes, its own justice that would not be ignored. Yet the story of Elijah was not a triumph or freedom. It was a reminder that the world remains cruel, that chains may be broken, but scars endure. His act of vengeance was perfect, precise, and silent, but it did not undo years of suffering. It did not return families, heal bodies, or erase pain. Still, it gave hope, a whisper of courage in a world ruled by fear. Over time, the story spread beyond the plantation. Travelers and traders spoke of a shadow who walked unseen, a man who could strike without warning. Parents told their children of Elijah in hushed tones, a legend meant to inspire both fear and awe. He became a symbol, proof that even in silence, the oppressed could shape fate, that courage could be hidden in shadows, and that justice sometimes comes in the smallest, quietest of forms. And yet his fate remained unknown. Some believed Elijah died soon after, hunted by men who sought revenge. Others said he vanished into the forests of Alabama, leaving only whispers behind. The truth was lost to time, leaving a question that lingered in the hearts of all who heard the tale. Could one man, a shadow in the night, truly change the world with a single act? The plantation remained, its cotton waving in the wind, a monument to wealth built on pain. But somewhere, hidden in the folds of history, Elijah's story persisted. A story of patience, courage, and the quiet power of vengeance. A story that reminds us that even in the darkest nights, a single drop can leave ripples that echo for generations. And so, the ashes of retribution settled over the land, silent, haunting, and unresolved. The legend of Elijah became a shadow that moved through history, a whisper in the wind, a reminder that even the smallest act of courage can leave a mark no chains can erase.